And we are seeing impairment in the Keystone Lakes, Santa Fe, and Ixia are some of our primary water bodies of concern. Those constraints or low flow are as a result of all the water uses, but agriculture in the region and the pumping from utilities in North Florida all along the coastline is, if you think about the geology of North Florida, where we have a karst topography in the center by the Swanee River. So that's where aquifer water comes to the surface. And we have a heavy overburden of clay on the East Coast. So a lot of water withdrawal here on the coastal areas will cause lower water in the aquifer, but it'll also affect our springs and spring flow in the central region. So because of that, we have to do what's called a water supply plan. That looks into the future 20 years. It is designed to identify where the constraints are, where are we going to get the water from for future growth. It's not our job to stop growth in any way. Our mandate is to find the water, working with our utilities. And that was never an issue. We had this fabulous aquifer, plentiful, clean water. Now our aquifer is constrained. Withdrawing water from the aquifer is becoming more and more difficult for new sources of water. Central Florida is in a much worse situation. It's the CFWI. We're in the North Florida region. So we're working with all of the utilities, including JEA, to find alternative sources. And the cheapest alternative source is water conservation. So lowering our demand reduction will help delay some of these more expensive options. This is the North Florida region. It goes into the Swanee River Water Management District and St. John's. We work closely together with DEP in the future planning for this region. Historically, the reclaimed water has been the most common alternative supply. Many of you are aware that a law passed last year saying that utilities can no longer discharge treated wastewater to surface water bodies come 2030. So I think that's perfect timing. That's for pollution purposes. But it means all of that treated wastewater is going to be used either to replace potable or even through a network of what we call RIBs, rapid infiltration basins, go to the aquifer once it's treated to help replenish. So we have this source we have to eliminate, not send out to tide, not send to surface water bodies, and we have this need for water with a growing population. But we're also looking at other sources. In Central Florida, most of the permits we issue are for what's called lower Floridan aquifer. Underneath the Florida, there's another aquifer with clean water and not too salty. So we're withdrawing from there. A lot of people say we're beside the ocean. Why don't we just use seawater? Well, it's about, oh, this is the old one. I'm sorry. There's a new one. There's new data. Seawater is actually 8 to 17 times more expensive to produce than our current water supply, which is the aquifer. Conservation is, like I said, a way to lower the demand. So we're not running out of water, we're running out of cheap water. So to supply our population, we're looking at all these alternative sources. But both Susan and I work hard to lower the demand because it's super high. This is where our water is going on average. Most of our water goes to utilities that we issue permits for. It's by far, it's about half of all the water we issue permits to is the public utilities. If you have an in-ground irrigation system, at least 50% is going to your grass, essentially. So we know that irrigation is the low-hanging fruit. We're working on many different levels, efficient design, installation, and operation of irrigation systems. We recently got access to a tool out of UF that actually measures use. We don't always have access to data on how much everybody's using. What we're learning through this tool called H2O Save is that way more than we thought is being used for irrigation. So an average family household use is 150 gallons per day for the average family. We're seeing 400 and 500 being used outdoors after that 150. when you average it over the period of time. So there's many projects going on to reduce that demand. And JEA is leading the way in this region, they're investing a tremendous amount of money into programs to help everybody reduce their water use and save money along the way. So I think we'll do questions at the end.
If you have questions, you can ask for while we're.
Yes. Any questions? Was that clear as mud? Oops. Sorry.
Keep talking.
Oh,
I'm sure you could.
Okay.
I know, it's pretty hard, it's strong grip. Okay, let me hear this fall off. Okay, I won't get too personal here.
Okay.
Well, we have the Main Street Nursery Farm in the branch and groundwater trials. I'm working with the builder in the development of Cambridge to have several show homes built with zero Turfgrass, zero irrigation on all levels. And the case you have baby tours. But today I got a call from a major in Colorado wanting to know if he used our district land to feed source for massive production. Because we always have this chicken and egg thing native. And he wants to go mainstream in producing it, but also do mainstream company, Cherry Lake Tree Farm, want to maintain these landscapes. So to me, this was a breakthrough.
Thank you, Deirdre. I really always hate coming after Deirdre. I have the voice that when I was younger, I would call my friends on the landline. Some of you remember landlines, right? Some of you don't know what they are. But I'd call on the landline and the dad would answer and they'd say, I'm sorry, Sally's not allowed to talk to boys. And it's like, it's Susan. So this wonderful Irish brogue, and I get to listen to my deep voice. So thank you. I do. That's the only reason people don't hear me. So first of all, I want to thank you guys for having me here. Jody and I met at a landscape forum or show, yeah. And she's like, hey, I hear you guys got some programs that really might be interesting for this group. So that's what I'm here to talk about. But before I do that, I just want to give you some overviews of some of the programs that we have. And I'm going to introduce Ernesto. Ernesto is with Franklin Energy, and they are the implementers of all of our programs. So if you do participate in any of them, you'll probably be working with his company, who then comes to us for the money. So we'll talk about the rebate program. So I wanted to just go through, we have a lot of different programs. I know we want to talk about landscapes, but I just want to make sure that you know that we do offer a lot of different opportunities. So we have spray nozzles, which is on your landscapes. You can go to Lowe's and Home Depots in the region and get spray nozzles, point of sale purchase. So you go there, if it's an $8 nozzle, we're going to give you $5 off. So when you go to pay for it, you're only going to pay $3. And so it's a point of sale purchase. We also, with the spray nozzles, it is automatic at the register. And there should be a little, what do you call this, Mr. Tag on there that says this nozzle is eligible for JEA rebate. And it should show the price of, again, as an example, it was normally $8, but because JEA is offering a rebate, you're only going to pay $3. Instant reduction. Okay. Lowe's and Home Depot are the two companies that we have that program with. The next three that I'm going to talk about was four actually is the clothes washers, dishwashers, irrigation controllers, and low flow toilets. All of those, again, Lowe's and Home Depot, but you can look online and buy them online also, and then submit the rebate. So then you'd have to go on JEA.com and apply for the rebate, and then we would mail you the check for the amounts. The amounts vary. Then there's in-home installation by contractor. We also offer programs that we use our network of pre-qualified contractors, and they would install the irrigation controller for you, for example, up to $250 we're going to pay for that to happen. The low flow toilets is, well, it's changing, so I'm not gonna say the price until you look on the website on Monday. It's really changing on Monday. And landscape transformation, which is the one we want to talk about today. Okay, so lots of opportunities to save water. So again, the outdoor water use programs are these for the irrigate landscape transformation spray nozzles, the smart irrigation controllers, and then I added in there irrigation assessments. So if you do have an in-ground irrigation system, you can call JEA and we'll have one of our folks come out and do an assessment on your irrigation system. They're not irrigation contractors. They're not going to help you design your irrigation system, but they're going to check and make sure that it's programmed the way it should be to make the best use of the water. And that's free of charge. Okay. And if you want a copy of these slides, you're welcome to share them with anybody that wants a copy of them. Okay. So how much water am I using to irrigate my yard? This is University of Florida, as I mentioned, does a lot of study on water irrigation systems, and I was shocked. 991 each time the average yard is watered. That's equivalent to running your dishwasher 50 times. We run ours about once a week. There's only 2 of us. That's pretty much all year long running our dishwasher, running our irrigation system for 1 day. And when you start to think about those numbers, you realize, do I really need that much water on my lawn? Probably not. Landscape transformation program is designed to help reduce the amount of water they use to irrigate. We were talking earlier, it's really about not just pulling up the turf and putting in native plants. It's about taking out the irrigation system or changing up the irrigation system to something that's more water friendly. Okay. And of course, attracting more native, including butterflies. I love your shirt, plant a bird feeder. That is adorable and so true. You know, you don't need to put a, well, it's nice to have them hang also, but plant a bird feeder. I've got one in my backyard and it's amazing what it draws. Butterflies, birds, and just phenomenal. And hopefully my new plant will help me do that. So here's all of our requirements. Yes, it's a little kind of long and lengthy and and you think, oh, forget it. I don't want to apply for this because it's got all those rules and regulations. That's legalese stuff. We have to put a lot of those things in there. But in reality, it comes down to these things. You have to be a JEA residential water customer. Otherwise, why would we rebate you? You have to have an irrigation system because that's what we're trying to do, reduce that irrigation. You have to have above average water usage. There are folks that have an irrigation system and don't use them. So really the incentive is to reduce water. That's where the conservation money comes from. So if it's really not going to reduce the water, it's not an advantage for either one of us as utility owners. That's real simple. You only have to have a backflow preventer. So if you have an irrigation system, you should be aware that you are required by the DEP to have a backflow preventer. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I should. So pipe it kind of go. That's what that is. Yep. Yeah, when we moved down here the last time, we've been here a couple times, and we bought a house. I always wonder what that thing was. But I'm like, it's some kind of piping. And it's right in the middle of my front yard. I hate it, but I was like, until I got the bill. So it's $35 charge. If you want JEA to test your backflow preventer, we'll do that for you, or you can have your own contractor. It's required by the DEP to have that tested every 2 years to make sure it's still working. And that's really for the safety of the water system. So it takes the water and makes sure it doesn't get back into the potable water. Okay. And you need to remove or transform at least 250 square feet. Again, some of these requirements are really because the program is designed and we get conservation funds from St. John's River Water Management District and some other sources that we need to make sure that we're having an impact on water usage. And if you're not removing 250 square feet, it's not going to really make an impact for the amount of money that we're giving you. And submit a pre and post installation application. Some of my S's there. And the reason we ask for a pre is because we want to make sure that we see what's on there. Not that we don't trust our homeowners and trust our customers, but it's really just to document everything that we do. And you'll see some great pictures on the pre and post here in a minute. Where appropriate, incorporate Florida-friendly plants. That is so key, and we really talked to folks about that, and you're gonna see some really cool pictures here in a minute where somebody did that. And then modifying the irrigation system. So if you do all that and you're still using all the water to water, especially native plants that don't need that much water, again, it defeats the purpose. So first one, this is the before. This is what their yard looked like before it's a typical Florida yard, right? Pretty boring. It's got nice green shrubs, all that green grass. Pretty boring. Here's the other side of it. This is looking from their house to their backyard. So you go. So they do have some ideas. They have a little bit of creativity here. Kind of bland still though. And here's the aerial view of their house. This is what it looked like. Not real creative. Lots of green that they don't need. This is what they did afterwards. They took out those shrubs, which require a lot of water, put in these flowers all the way around. And this is their new garden in the back. It doesn't look like 250 square feet, but it really is because they put a pathway in also. And then they changed their irrigation system so that none of that's being watered. They actually put some micro watering system in the back part, or in the front, I'm sorry, where there's not as much shade. But they removed a lot of their irrigation system. We have not yet run the numbers. We have to wait a year before you get real data when you're doing a landscape transformation because of our seasonality. We've had such a weird winter and everything this year. So I'm not sure how it's going to work out. But I think they did a pretty nice job. I'd like to see them do more, but we can't tell people what to do with their yards, although we'd like to. So yeah. So this is this other application. They actually sent us a lot of really great drawings. And this is what their contractor did. They said that we're going to remove over 1,000 square feet of turf. And then he listed, I'm going to put native plants as replacement for sod, which I was like, yes, they get it. This particular landscaper is really wonderful. He's been working with us on not just this, but some smart irrigation controllers. And we're really happy with the work he does. Here's an example. This is the pictures, not only with the layout, they sent us pictures and showed us exactly where they're going to put it. There's a bed to be right next to that other one. This whole area on the left-hand side of the house, they're going to put beds in. And then this is the irrigation plan. So this is how they're going to change their irrigation system. And again, these details, I can't tell you the address because I don't have the permission from the customer, but we'd be happy to share this with you guys for ideas. Look at that. I mean, that is, I really wish they'd done more too, but I think they did a great job of taking out a lot of turf and putting in some Florida-friendly landscape. They used the pine straw. Yeah. But I mean, that's just beautiful. And it's so funny. You look across the street and you're like, oh, maybe they can get an idea. Yeah. Because the people across the street aren't doing this. They put some new trees in there. Again, some Florida-friendly plants out there. We removed a lot of. Oops. And this one. Again, this is definitely one you want to take a picture afterwards. Or a year from now, it's kind of like, okay, that looks nice. And we get that. We get how nice that is and how important that is. But a lot of people wouldn't because they'd look at that and they'd see a lot of brown. But very shortly, you're going to see a lot of green and you're going to see a lot of color, and it's going to be a fabulous yard. See, they got a nice bird feeder there on the side. So that is what I have. I mean, it's not a lot because it's not a real difficult program, despite that big list of requirements I put up there. It's really not. We really want to make our programs simple, and we're open to ideas. These are the programs that we have today. We also have commercial programs on the other end for our C&I customers, but we're open to ideas. If you have some other ideas on residential programs that we could do that would save water, we'd love to hear about them, and we'll analyze them. Yes, sir. Will do. Thanks. So the question was, can we recommend any landscapers? So as a municipality, as you probably know, JEA is owned by the city, which is owned by you, so we work for you. And for that reason, we don't recommend anybody. However, we do have pre-qualified contractors, and the reason we do that is to make sure that anybody we do put on our website as somebody that could apply for a rebate for you, is somebody that has the right insurances, they're vetted with the state, et cetera. So as of right now, we have Liberty Landscape, and there's another one. Help me, Ernesto. Ernesto's been on the job for about a week, so I don't know why he doesn't know this stuff yet. Not to put him on the spot, since I don't know who they are. I know Liberty is the one that did that really great lawn I showed you a minute ago. And the other one, I can't think of their name, but it's on our website. Same thing with the smart irrigation controllers. There's folks that will do that, and it's up to $250. So if they're going to charge you $350 to install it, we'll take on their bill, it will say minus $250 from JEA and only charge you $100. And that includes the actual smart irrigation controller too.
Posted the vendors from your website in the chat, the Grounds Guys of St. John's and Liberty Landscape Supply.
Deirdre and I compare notes. I had not had my irrigation system on since last July. And I live in an HOA who's also very picky. Like if you have 3 weeds in your yard, they're calling you about it. And I didn't have it since last July. But again, it's because a lot of the stuff I have, I've been very careful about what I put in my yard. And I did turn it on twice this year. And that's it so far. So let me repeat the question. The question is, are HOA familiar with the fact that there's a law that went into place about 2 years ago to allow changes in your landscape that may not meet their standards, but their standards are superseded by the law, which is very familiar with. Somebody get close or talk about it.
It's not legislation because it just says HOA cannot prevent you from having started in landscape, which is in the IRS. So if an HOA has items in their covenants and just allow a couple of different turfgrass and is vague, so is the way the program is designed. So there have been several lawsuits, and you literally, if you're HOA, you're saying it's Florida friendly, and they said, but our covenants say you're not meeting our covenants, you didn't get permission, and it's very hard to win, to be honest with you. And it's always important to get permission, just get involved in play, get on committees, involved with mine, be an exchange covenants, so they are Florida. And we have multiple turfgrass, they allow 50% chicken at the A&L, backyard, and my new daughter person, if they ask me to remove those weeds from around my bed, weeds to the purchase. So don't assume the law says you can put a rock, well, rocks aren't Florida friendly, but you can do whatever you want. You can. If you chose to live in any HOA, you have to follow the covenants. And they're not usually, it's vague and so is Florida friendly, it's a DMP program with high principles. It's not definitive. show pictures and examples for you to know from Florida Friendly. But my order, they're noticing the front of 50/50 and security technically for Friendly is nominated. The Florida Friendly program is changing. They've got some new leadership. They're becoming more redundant, native plant societies. They're becoming more inclusive. You're going to see a lot of big changes. The other thing we have is free webinars for community association managers who work for a management company. And we have it coming up on May 11th, and it's to teach the CAMs how to maintain landscape as efficiently as possible. So how to fix irrigation, redesign irrigation, how to retrofit landscapes, and we've lots of pictures, and that's been hugely popular. We've started going to HOA expos to get the word out, and Susan and I will be at one of those soon in Jacksonville, and they just don't know. It's not that they don't want to do it, they don't have a clue. Who's on the board of HOAs? It's retired people who, yeah, you're on the board, okay, but you're informed. So it's education, it's getting the word out to them.
So you know what that I guess it for people to take.
Correct.
So
Not with,
I think it-
yep, yeah. Yeah.
Is there any kind of data about the relationship between this kind of effort and
I'm trying, no, there's a couple of economists at UF who have looked at that. And they also have done these really interesting visual aesthetic studies of what people find more pleasurable to look at, from 100% native plants or Florida friendly, no turf grass, to 50/50 to 90/10. And they measure people's how their eyes, they wear these goggles reflect, and they 50/50 is the most attractive. We know from working with builders on the Water Star program, first of all, they don't want to do anything that costs more, but they have no problem selling homes that are 40% beds, 60% turf grass, and they're generally considered more attractive. So, if you just Google Florida statutes, Florida friendly landscaping, you'll find it. And Alachua County has a mediation. They have a rule they passed that allows county staff to mediate between you and your HOA and resolve the issues. And they're the only county that has that. It is, yeah. And the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program has documents on their website with contracts and what the covenants and restrictions should say to be Florida friendly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And there is one attorney in Florida called Barbara Stage Law firm, and she has represented both. It never ends well. People end up moving, they lose everything they have. HOA, they lose a ton of money. It just doesn't end well. The legislation didn't have a mediation mechanism to do enforcement. The only option is to go to court, which is kind of crazy over turf grass. How much yards.
So hopefully the folks on the phone or in the call did understand and hear all that was going on. But basically, to summarize, and let's see if I summarize this correctly, there is some legislature out there that says that you can have Florida friendly and it's okay. HOAs have other vague rules that say, no, it has to be by our standards. And unfortunately, right now, the legislature is vague enough that it can become a battle. And the encouraging thing is what we're encouraging you to do is work with your HOAs. Deirdre and I both, we love doing road shows together or independently. So if you have an HOA you'd like us to come talk to, we'd be happy to do that. And then we also, she mentioned, we're going to be participating in the expo, if the HOA here, society here in Jacksonville. I say Duval County, same difference, right? Coming up in June. So we're trying to get the word out. That's really all we can do at this point. Jacksonville's not ready to do any kind of code enforcement for this type of thing. So until we can get to that stage, it's all about education. The city of Jacksonville's not ready. You'd have to talk to your lawmakers. Even as a utility company, we talked to them about, hey, we need you to, for example, watering your lawn. There is a code, and there's a code in Duval County that says you can only water on certain days of the week and so many times a week. And in that same code, it says, and if we want to enforce it, we'll do this. Nobody enforces it. If we ever get into a drought condition, JEA, and this is way before my time, I want to say 15 years ago, there was a drought conditions, and JEA did, again, we can't enforce it because it's the city of Jacksonville's, but what we did was we went to those high users, because we have that data, and we shamed them. We call it either shame them or, because you can educate, but until somebody gets embarrassed, so we had door hangers. So people, their neighbors knew if you got a door hangers because you're using too much water. I mean, we didn't say that publicly, but, and this is being recorded, I probably shouldn't say that either. But I mean, what else can we do? Some people don't even realize it. We talked about some of the communities that we deal with, that literally use like the 900 on a daily basis. And you talk to them and they're like, that's okay, we got the money, we'll do it. I mean, how do you change that behavior? We're working on it, but.
So the irrigation restrictions are our rules, which we strong-armed every single local government in the district to pass as a code, but very few of them are enforcing it. It's the number one thing an entity should do to reduce their water use, because a lot of people don't even know it exists. There's UF does a survey every year of homeowner behavior with irrigation, and 50% of people in their survey didn't even know there were irrigation restrictions. And it's 2 days a week in the summer, 1 day a week in the winter. It would significantly reduce water use, but I have had utility directors, not JEA, tell me, no, we're not enforcing that because we need the revenue from that water use to build our new plant to supply water that we're making them build. So, and code enforcement has to visually see a violation to act on it. And this is in the middle of the night usually, but we have some plans we're working on trying to do a kinder, gentler billboards and all of that to get the word out.
So hopefully from JEA, you do get notification on a regular basis when the changes are when the clock changes. So we were all concerned when that might have went away. We're like, it is going to go away. So now we're gonna have to like pick a date, I guess, not, and just, she mentioned JEA does not do that. And the reason is because we are owned by you. We are your utility. You've seen the ads and they're true. It's your utility. So we don't want more revenue per se. We're not for profit organization. So more revenue doesn't do us any good because then we have to spend it on something we don't need. And then we have people at our board meetings that are upset. So it's not our goals. Sorry. Oh, so the idea was if somebody reduces their water by a certain amount in irrigation, that we give them some kind of voucher to use in your plant companies. That's a great idea. And so I have to get your name later so I can give you credit for that if we were able to implement that. Correct. We have no visibility to septic and wells. We know who we
Well, we're,
So St. John's River Water Management District is the one that, yeah.
there's delegation rule that we may not know that whether you have a well, and this is becoming a problem. We encourage utilities to have a tiered billing system, so the more you use, the more you pay. And if that amount of money goes up too much, people put a well in, so they don't have to pay for irrigation. We're not keeping up with the wells, so we're looking in particular at Alachua and trying to figure out a way to capture who's putting a well in. The good thing an HOA can do, an HOA is the only entity that can disallow irrigation wells. If they can put it in their covenants and restrictions, we moving forward will be encouraging new HOAs, the developer, to write that language into their covenants and restrictions. So, yeah, you're lucky to have one. Just don't-
So the idea, for those on the call, the question was, do we keep track of the wells? And we do and don't. One more question, then we gotta wrap up because we have another presenter. So the question is, are wells considered more detrimental to the water system?
So here in Jacksonville, you have a shallow aquifer. You're not going straight into the Floridan aquifer. So it's not as bad. Shallow wells in Jacksonville, some people think protect the Floridan aquifer. But in somewhere like Alachua County, irrigation wells are going to the Floridan aquifer. And if 100 people sink them, that's nobody's measuring it. We don't know how much they use. So we're trying to see if there's a way to get meters on those wells, just to know how much is being used. But we don't have a legal way to do that right now.
So again, thank you very much for your time. We're gonna be around for a little while, so if you have any other questions, feel free to keep us and answer those questions. And so I'm gonna turn it over to Jody. And please, sorry for the folks on the phone, but we have some wonderful squeezy toilets here because as you saw on the slide, toilets use a lot of water, so remember that. And then we also have some rain gauges and some other wonderful things. And then over here, I have, but I'll let you get set up. I have a water conservation box. So if I tweet, we can go on JEA.com or water conservation. Click this. Copy that. What the number is.
She ought to be talking.
I know. Food shower raiders. Water time is fast. Leaking. Yeah. A water efficient garden. One and a half. Email about it too, and very thing I don't want to do that.
Oh, there we go.
And you can, okay, go back to, yeah, you're fine. It is, looks okay up here. Click, try, go to the next one up here. Yeah, I do. I have it on the flash drive.
They just had the arrow down.
Okay. All right.
So she can use the arrow down.
I'll use this here,
Yeah, yes.
not this. Okay.
Yeah, because.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. We're going to talk about, I'm going to give you some examples of native ground covers and other ideas to eliminate turf grass. Use, wait, this thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the problems with turf grass? All right, well, loss of biodiversity. Florida has about 4 million acres of managed turf grass. It's a water hog and people overwater a lot, like my neighbor. The use of fertilizers damages aquatic habitat, causes algae blooms, impairs our waters, and people over fertilize as well. And turf grass is hard to keep because it gets diseases and insects. So what do native ground covers provide? And this is in my backyard. All right, so what they do is, okay, it's the reduction of an ecological dead zone. There's water savings because there's no need to irrigate once they're established. No need to use fertilizers, no need to use pesticides or herbicides. And it's an increased ability to support breeding birds because you're supplying host plants for the caterpillars that birds rely on for food, especially during nesting season. Caterpillars are the biggest source of energy for our birds. And it's also support for pollinators such as bees, butterflies, and moths. So we have 12 native ground covers to consider using here. And let's start with the first one, sunshine mimosa. All right, this is a native. It can withstand light traffic despite its appearance. It's a host plant for butterfly larvae. It blooms from spring through the fall. It spreads quickly. You can use as few as 4 or 5 pots to cover 300 square feet in a season. It's not evergreen, but it can be mixed with turf grass, and you can plant it in full sun or part shade, and it can be mowed. And this is what it looks like if you have a nice spread of it in your yard. Okay, next is dune sunflower. It's also native. It's great for hot, dry sites. It doesn't like supplemental water. It does spread and reseed, and you can use it as a ground cover, a border plant, or in masses, and it's also salt tolerant, so it's great if you live by the beach and want to use it. Okay, now here's blue porterweed. This picture I also took in my garden. Very exciting. Okay, now this plant is drought tolerant. It's moderately salt tolerant, and it does well in poor soil. Now you can prune it to maintain the size and the shape. You should cut it back significantly in the spring to encourage more growth. And it will grow in well-drained sand, clay, or loamy soil. It likes full sun to part shade. It's probably 1 to 3 feet tall with a 2 to 3 foot spread. You can eat the flowers raw. It has a mushroom-like flavor. The leaves can be dried and steeped into foamy tea or brewed into beer. This is probably the origin of the common name referring to porter-style beer. The flower spice can be used as you would bay leaves to season soups or stews. And the other thing is the flowers will only open for 1 day, and they won't open on very cloudy days. Okay, frog fruit. All right, this, of course, is a native. It'll die back under long periods of drought, but it's a wonderful host plant for 3 butterfly species, white peacock, Phaon crescent, and common buckeye. It provides nectar for pollinators, and it forms a dense mat by rooting along the stem. So it's about 3 inches in height, and it's about 6 inches when it's in bloom. And you can mix it with turf and mow it at the same height. Another one of my favorites. Okay, here's blue-eyed grass. All right, this is fairly adaptable to drought and partial shade. If you have moist soil and you put it in full sun, you'll get denser foliage and more flowers. But it doesn't transplant well in the full summer heat, so please plant it in the fall or the winter. It's a prolific self-seeder. You can mow it, and you should plant it about 8 inches apart to form a mass. And it attracts bees, pollinators, and birds. Okay, wild petunia. Again, a picture from my yard. Very excited. All right, this blooms all year round and it's readily adaptable to a host of conditions. It does well in a mixed flower bed of plants and grasses. It's the larval host for the common buckeye butterfly. It reaches about 16 inches tall. Now, the invasive Mexican petunia looks similar, but that, of course, is 4 feet tall. And it will do well in full sun or partial shade. It will die back in the winter. Mine died back this winter, and the picture that you saw was mine coming back in full bloom. So don't get discouraged if there's frost and it dies back to the ground. Okay, now everybody laughs at me because this is my favorite, spotted bee balm. I know this is what it looks like before it blooms. So you can use it as a ground cover. Yes, same thing. It grows in full sun to partial shade. It likes dry to slightly moist, well-drained soil. It looks good in a mixed flower bed and as a ground cover before blooming. There's a long bloom time in the late summer and the early fall. It's high in thymol and it was used historically to treat ringworm and hookworm infections. And if you like to experiment, the leaves can be brewed into mild tea, said to promote relaxation. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes. And so you can check out this website too, eattheweeds.com. I like that idea. All right, and then here it is, guys. Here it is in bloom. Here it is in bloom. That was my front yard last summer. Isn't that spectacular? And the bees go crazy for it. The coloration on it is a huge range. I mean, it can be, as you can see here, some that are really scarlet, some that are almost white, some are lavender. I mean, I just stand in front of it in awe when I see all the bees on it. So, and Bill laughs at me, but I don't care. All right. And this is landsleaf coreopsis. And this is also another bed in my yard. Now, you can plant this again in full sun to partial shade. It's very adaptable and does well in a landscape setting. It's a prolific self-seeder, and it can become weedy if you don't maintain it. But again, it does attract butterflies and other pollinators, and the seeds are eaten by birds and other wildlife. Okay, now this is partridge berry. This is a picture I took at Rondette Park when I was there with Adam, and Adam spotted it. Now, this is typically grown as a curiosity. It's a very small plant, but if you have a natural forested area or you want to establish one in your yard, then I would suggest using this. It's definitely a shade plant. It's not salt tolerant. It doesn't like wet soil, but it doesn't like dry soil. So it's also loamy or sandy soil. It's very small. It's only 1 inch to 2 inches in size. Okay, creeping sage, beautiful plant. Okay, this is not salt tolerant either, unfortunately, but it does attract pollinators. It's a host plant for the fulvous hair-streak butterfly. It likes sandy soil. It forms a low dense cover, and it will grow in full sun, part shade, and full shade. Now, it can spread more than preferred, but it's, again, easy to pull up if you need to. And then it's also easily propagated by dividing the root ball, but it will also grow from seed. The oblong twin flower, another beautiful plant. Okay, this attracts bees and butterflies, including the malachite and the white peacock butterflies. And it especially attracts bees. And it's, again, a host plant for the common buckeye. It likes dry to mostly acidic, well-drained sandy soils. Again, full sun to part shade, 6 inches to 10 inches and a sprawling habit. It's very adaptable to the home garden as it has an extended bloom period and it will spread rapidly. Now, although it's drought tolerant, extended dry periods can harm the plant, so you might have to water it occasionally. And it's not salt tolerant, so unfortunately, it's not good for coastal landscapes. And finally, we have the gopher apple. Now, this blooms the spring through the summer, but it can bloom year-round and attracts many pollinators. The fruits appear in the late summer, and it's the preferred food of gopher tortoises. It's edible to humans, but nearly tasteless. It likes dry, well-drained sandy soil, full sun, and its growth is up to 1 foot tall. It's drought tolerant and fire adapted, and it spreads by way of underground rhizomes and can help stabilize dry sandy soils. Okay, so now here's some other ideas to eliminate turf grass. The first one is to use perennial peanut. Now, this is not a native, it's a legume, but you can plant it and you mow it at 3 to 4 inches every 3 to 4 weeks. It grows in part shade and it can stabilize areas that are prone to erosion. You have to keep it watered till it's established, no surprise. And you can start from sod or plants. You can use 4-inch, quart, or 1 gallon plant size. Now, there's other ideas too. I don't know. Walter, do you know? Okay, next idea is you can enlarge your landscape beds, as this homeowner has done. We're going to ignore that. I didn't take this picture. I'm, you know. So, okay. All right, you can use, here's another thing you can do is if you want to get it creative, is use walls, paths, benches, and other structures. As you can see, what happened with this yard right here. This is from Ginny Steibolt's blog, Green Gardening Matters, but isn't that spectacular? Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, those are some other ideas. Yeah. Okay, you can plant ground covers in masses, like this person has done. And you can be really courageous and plant up your entire front yard if you can get away with it. I wish I could. Here's my front yard. I'm still getting rid of the turf grass, little by little. And then here's some final thoughts on lawns to consider. And this is from Doug Tallamy, who's one of my heroes. There's the tens of millions of acres of lawn in America is an ecologically dead status symbol. It's time to bring you, the private landowner, back into a critically important position in the future of conservation and help regenerate biodiversity by planting more natives. It's really up to us, guys, 1 yard at a time. We don't need the wholesale removal of grass, as it's the best plant to walk on without killing it. But instead, look at doing a yard with a bit of lawn, and it conveys that the yard hasn't been forgotten, but it's a landscape with intention that could inspire others. And finally, whatever grass you decide to keep could be a freedom lawn. And a freedom lawn is laced with whatever grows. It's free from fertilizer, weed killer, water, and restrictions of any kind. If it's green, you mow it. So if you want more information on that, you can go to the website for the Duval County Extension Office. And that's it, guys. Any questions? Of course. Absolutely. I'd be glad to. Yes. Yes. What? Oh, I'm sorry, you asked it to share that PowerPoint. Yes, I'll be glad to share it with anyone who wants it. So you just have to email me. That's the trick. Or we can put it on the website. It's up to you. Okay? All right. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for coming. You know, enjoy some more food. And I hope to see you soon at some other event that we have. Well, some of them made a so identify, put together